everyone, welcome to Sound Waves, where we will be getting powerful stories out of amazing creative minds in an honest and open interview, and most of all, get to learn why these people do what they do. Let's say you are a world famous legendary DJ and you use your voice to stand up for what you believe is something so important everyone should hear about. Using your voice to inspire others is such a powerful thing to do. This is what Danny Howells is doing, and I'm very much looking forward to speaking with him today and giving you an insight in his mind so we can all learn from him. Danny was born in the UK and has an amazing career in the electronic music industry. He's been around for over 3 decades, enchanting people with his amazing DJ sets and warm personality. His mixes have also made waves on the world-famous Essential Mix on BBC Radio, and it's not just as a DJ where Danny has made a name for himself. He's also an accomplished producer and remixer. On the remix front, Danny and his studio partner back then have remixed Madonna, Destiny's Child, and Robbie Williams, and he's probably going to hate me for mentioning all of this. He has delivered outstanding albums, of which Global Underground Miami from 2005 is definitely my personal favorite. I've listened to that album so much. I have known Danny for many years. It started by me, the younger version of myself, on the dance floor, wherever he was playing, enjoying his music and listening to his albums. And later on, when I became a professional in the music industry myself, I interviewed him and even had a chance to play with him at the same events with him a few times. I'm very happy and honored Danny said yes to my invitation for this new project, Sound Waves, as I believe he has such a vibrant energy as a person and a very strong message to share with us. Welcome, Danny.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. You've given me such a big intro. I'm really scared I'm going to let you down now.
You will not. This is also, I told you before, I'm very picky in my choices, and you were definitely in my top 3 of people to ask first. Oh. Maybe even my top 1, honestly.
Right. Don't let your other guests hear that, otherwise they'll be upset.
They won't be, because I didn't make a list of 100 people yet. You know, I'm just starting up, and the first person that came to mind was you. I think we met in 2004, I believe. It was at Extrema Outdoor, a festival in the Netherlands. Yeah. So I've known you for many years, and you never let me down. You are just such a warm personality. And I think everybody that knows you personally says the same about you. Back then, I wouldn't have known that we would would be having this talk today. So I want to thank you again for being on this podcast, as there is not even an episode online. You just said yes.
Well, I know you, and I've known you for a very, very long time, and I know what work you do, and I know I follow you on social media, and I see your messages, and I see what you do. So obviously, it was a no-brainer for me, really. We go back a very, very long way as well.
But it also takes guts. It's a very powerful thing that you do, especially working in the music industry, because everyone creates a certain image of themselves. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I started this podcast. After so many interviews over the years, I really wanted to bring out these different aspects of the people I'm interviewing, the more profound stories. And you are doing that also on your social media.
Yeah.
So we just had a talk already before we start recording. We are in strange times. We are in lockdown. You are in the UK. I'm in the Netherlands. And the corona crisis is hitting us hard, especially, everybody. But the music industry is definitely also in a bad place right now. So how is it affecting you?
Well, in every way imaginable, really. I mean, obviously, the 2 things that I do in my life, obviously my music, DJing, and my animal rights activism, and it's hit both of them. It's just basically pulled them both away from me completely. But on a personal level, I think there's so much going around right now, and it's so much. You can look so deeply into why we're in the middle of this, how it started, and all the different theories and all this kind of thing that are flying around. And I think you can really sort of make yourself go a little bit kind of crazy by over analysing it all. I think what we have to focus on right now is the fact that we are in the middle of this, but we do want to get out of it. And we want to protect ourselves and our friends and everybody around us. So I think at the moment, I'm just sort of complying with what we are, being asked to comply with, which is obviously keep as safe as possible and keep our distance, and going out only when we need to, and going out for exercise, this kind of thing, and just sort of trying to be hopeful. I mean, in terms of like music and events and this kind of thing, I think this is going to be the very, very, very last thing that will be reinstated. I think you can see a very gradual reintroduction of different things. Like you'll see like shops start to reopen with very limited numbers, and then you'll start to see restaurants open with limited capacity. And then I think at the very, very end of that, once we're completely sure that that we've really sort of beaten it, or as much as we can at that time, then you'll start to see clubs and festivals reopen. And I don't think I'm being pessimistic. I think I'm being realistic about this. I think it's a long time before things get back to normal, or if they get back to normal. I mean, if you look at where we're at right now, where we're having to keep 6 feet or 2 meters away from everybody else, at what point are we suddenly going to say, right, it's okay to have 130,000 people at Glastonbury, or it's okay to have 500 people in a rock venue in Camden or something like this, all jumping on top of each other? I can't see how it's going to get back to that. And I'm wondering maybe with music venues, whether it's going to be like, okay, we're going to reopen Hammersmith Apollo, but it's only going to be a capacity of 500 people, and you're all going to be sat. I don't know what the future holds for clubbing and festivals, but it's a very, very, very crazy time. And I think for me personally, I think for people that I know, even though we could be looking at a long, long time before we work again, or see family, friends, this kind of thing, focusing on the positives, health. Do we have a roof over our heads? Do we have roofs over our heads? This kind of thing. Focusing on the positives that are there, because at the end of the day, apart from a very small amount of people, it's hit everybody. Careers completely across the board, and people have had their entire lives wiped out overnight. So I think focusing on the positives that are out there right now, and being constructive and finding ways to adapt to the new lifestyle, which could be here indefinitely.
Are you also afraid or scared about how will it affect the music industry, or are you not focusing on that at all?
Yeah, of course I am. I think it's a real tragedy, and I think it's in some ways there are some things that are coming out of this crisis that I think will have a positive impact, and I really hope this positive impact will be, not just in immediate aftermath. I think like long term, I think there'll be some positives that come out of this in the way that the way that we are, the way that we look at things, the way we do things, this kind of thing, and the values that we have. I think a lot of these things will be changed afterwards. I think you're going to see a lot of creativity come out of it. You'll see a lot of faces disappear, and I think you'll also see a lot of new faces come through as well. So I think it's going to be maybe in some ways like a kind of back to square one in a way. Things gradually work up, build from scratch. We can come to it later on, but my DJ career has slowed down a lot over the last few years, and I think there's many reasons for that. I think one, I think you kind of have a natural lifespan anyway. B, I've put a lot more effort into my animal rights activism, which is kind of meant that I can't work every weekend anyway. I mean, I'm organising different events in London. I have to be at certain events in London, which means I can't work that weekend. So I've seen a slowing down of my life in terms of like career, but at the same time, it was still relentless. There was never a day where I would wake up and go, I can just do exactly what I want to do today. It was always kind of like, oh, okay, I've got to do this, that, and that. Looking at the pace of life and actually enjoying each day and waking up and looking forward to each day, rather than feeling, oh no, I have to do that, oh, I'm late for that, oh, that's delayed, or there's, I haven't got that paperwork sent over yet, or anything like that. It's just kind of a different kind of lifestyle where really sort of like trying to make the most of it. And I feel very fortunate as well in that, I think there's so many people around the world that have just had their lives destroyed and like that. It's like my career might have been destroyed, but my life isn't destroyed. My life will still go on, and my family is still healthy and this kind of thing. And I've got my health.
Thanks for sharing, Danny. Thanks for sharing. We got a little glimpse of your life right now in lockdown. And as I mentioned before, I was thinking that you actually said yes to my request for interviewing you for this podcast, while normally people wait to see, other big names to join first. And it made me think about why you were so certain and willing to do this, besides knowing me and I came up with the answer like, Danny has a message which is not just about him, but about a greater cause. You already mentioned it. You also are an animal activist. So I would like to dive into that subject with you right now. Can you share with us when this all started?
It wasn't for me one trigger. There wasn't one single triggering episode. It was a number of different things that got me to where I am now. And I think, I can reel off a couple of things for you, but there was one time that I was out driving with my my ex-girlfriend many years ago, and my car broke down because I used to always drive such shit cars, and it broke down next to a field. And I remember we got out waiting for the emergency, services, AA, to come and get my car started. And we got out the car, and there was a field next to us, and there was a sheep. We were sort of like cuddling the sheep through the fence and going, and having such an amazing time. And then it kind of clicked with me, kind of thinking, well, it's weird because this creature is in front of me and absolutely beautiful, and all I want to do is give him or her a massive cuddle. And yet, maybe last night or the night before, this animal would have been on my plate, and that was one thing that got me thinking. And then I think another time, I remember vividly, I was flying home from Argentina, and I got upgraded on Air France, and they gave us the meal, and I chose steak. I remember cutting into it, and all this blood came out, and I was like really, really, really sickened. I was like, oh, that's disgusting. And I remember giving it back and saying, I can't eat that. It really got me thinking. I was kind of thinking, well, if what is on my plate actually resembles what it is, which is an animal, why am I so disgusted? Why am I refusing to eat it? There's a lot of things that kind of got me sort of, thinking along those lines. But I remember vividly seeing one video. There's a video of fur farming. And I remember seeing a video of an animal being skinned alive. And it's a very, very old video, but very, very famous clip. It really affected me so heavily. And even though we don't have fur farming in the UK, we still sell fur. But it just made me think a lot about this relationship that we have with animals, why we feel that we can, what gives us the right to exploit, to abuse, to mutilate, to treat them just as simple commodities like an iPhone or a tin of baked beans. So that got me really thinking. I think after the incident when I flew home from Air France and I was horrified by that blood on my plate, I came home and I said, I'm going to stop eating animals. And I carried on eating fish for a while, but I stopped eating animals. But when I did that, I started to question, well, why am I still eating fish? And I started to look into fishing, and then suddenly sort of looking at like fish suffocating as they're being pulled out of the ocean, this kind of thing. And okay, right, I'm going to go vegetarian. And then for a while, I was thinking, okay, that's fine. And then I started, as you do, started to research dairy industry, started to research the egg industry, and started to see that all these things that I'd been taught just by society and by the media and all the things that we're taught, like humane, ethical, free range, high welfare, all these things that I'd been taught all my life just didn't exist. And no matter how you try and find some sort of justification for what we were doing to these animals, none of it was ever humane, or what I considered humane. Whether it's egg, whether it's wool, leather, whether it's milk, meat, you name it, I just couldn't find any justification. I found that if I was still consuming egg, or if I was still consuming dairy, I was feeling very, very guilty about it. So I thought, okay, right, I'm going to switch to plant-based, and then I went fully vegan. There's no such thing as a perfect lifestyle. You're still going to, no matter what you do, you cannot live a perfect lifestyle. But I knew at that particular time that I was causing the least amount of harm to others that I could possibly be doing. So I felt so much better in myself, and I felt amazing. And I think that when you feel like that, you want to tell the world about it. It's like music. If you hear an amazing album, or you discover an amazing band, you want to tell the world about it. It was so amazing. And I was like, well, is just being vegan enough? I was thinking, well, I should be doing more, really. And I started to get involved with online stuff, arguing with people online, having massive fights, and then being blocked, and people calling me every single name under the sun. I was kind of like, this isn't really good. This is not great. This is like, it's making me feel really bad. So I thought, well, maybe let's go and do actual activism. Let's get out on the streets and see how that works. So I remember vividly, it was middle of February in 2017. where I saw on Facebook that somebody that I was friends with was having a fur demo outside Harvey Nichols, and then later on that day there was another fur demo in Portobello Market. And so I joined them, and I was very, very nervous, and I hadn't chanted before, and I've always been very, very scared. I'm not like you. I'm very, very bad at sort of public speaking or anything with my voice. And I was very nervous, but I went along and I joined in, and I was kind of like, well, it's better to take part and not be amazing than not take part at all. So that was it, basically. I think a few weeks after that, I went to my first ever vigil, and a vigil is where you attend a slaughterhouse and you witness the trucks coming, and you stop the truck for maybe minutes. You get some footage of the animals, and you share this footage online. You say goodbye to the animals as well, and you sort of have a little way of sort of showing some respect to them before they're taken inside to be slaughtered. You share this footage online, and it helps people to sort of kind of make the connection between like the animals that they're beating on their plate, and what they really are, which is like beautiful sentient creatures that have the ability to feel fear, to feel joy, to create bonds, relationships. So that was what I did soon after that, and I think things just gradually, one thing led to another, and then I ended up sort of like taking on a couple of events that other people had sort of stopped organising, and just really just finding as much time as many ways as possible to be creative within animal rights in order to spread the message and to try and help the animals, and to try and make the world a better place for them, because really at the end of the day it couldn't be any worse. So that's kind of how I got to where I am right now, and obviously what I'm doing a bunch of different things right now within that, and trying to balance that with the music. And at the moment, I've been balancing it okay, I think, hopefully.
Well, this story, and I knew this already because you do what you do, you definitely found your mission, your purpose in life. This is bigger than yourself. And what I think is so powerful about this and so strong is you being such a warm-hearted person and a DJ that a lot of people look up to. You have the guts to make yourself actually less popular, because a lot of people would they don't want to look at the videos that you post are horrific. People tend to look away from things that are horrible, that they don't want to look at. And you are definitely making this a bigger cause and your message bigger than yourself, because you're like, this is happening and I cannot look away anymore. Like you said, just by becoming vegan, it wasn't enough, because I wasn't educating other people. I wasn't telling the world why I actually became vegan. And I think people should know about this, what is happening.
When I first started getting involved in activism, I would just share everything. And I'm like, and I was quite angry. I was quite kind of like, you go through sort of like an angry phase, and it's like, you don't have to, blah, blah, blah. It's just, the way you sort of word things, it comes across as angry. Now I'm kind of a lot more kind of like relaxed, in the sense that I don't feel I need to be posting the most graphic stuff. I feel I can do more with kind of just words. Or I think if you post the really graphic stuff, then people are just going to mute you, or they're going to stop following you. And it's like, well, I'm trying to find a sort of balance to it where I can sort of like share stuff that isn't going to make people, I don't want people to sort of unfollow me as a result of that. And not I need followers, it's just because I want people to sort of continue to see these messages. But I think the most important thing is, it is difficult for all of us to see that. Then the question emerges, if it's difficult for us to look at, because I don't really sort of go out my way. If you've got like some guy in London who's been filmed beating up his dog, I don't see how that me sharing that is not going to benefit the animals overall. That is not going to help achieve what I want to achieve, which is total animal liberation. What I will share is the standard practices that are there within the food industries, within meat, within the egg, dairy, just the basic standard practices. And I think if that is showing us, if that is making us feel uncomfortable, or making us upset, or making us want to look away, then the question is, why are we still paying for it? And I think that's the point I try and get across. It's like, I'm showing you what happens in every single dairy farm across the world, what happens in every single egg production facility. It doesn't matter where you are. If you take egg, for example, male chicks are always going to be discarded at one day old because they are a byproduct of the egg industry. You know, males don't lay eggs, so this is something that people don't talk about, but the males will always be destroyed, and whether that's by being ground up alive or by being placed into huge plastic bags and then suffocated. That is standard practice. So I'll share things like that, and if it makes people like upset, then you should be upset, because this is horrific. You know, if you had a giant bag full of cats, and you let those cats suffocate, then people would be out on the streets rioting, and rightly so, you know, absolutely rightly so. We don't acknowledge it, you know, we don't question these things, we just let it all take place. And it's, you know, and I think you were right, it should upset us, and it should make us think, well, why, if it's upsetting me, if it's no good for my eyes, then why is it good enough for my stomach? So, I think, like you say, I think as well, at the same time, it does make you less popular, because you're going against what 99.9% of the population pay for, and don't want to be challenged anywhere at all. Even though avoiding these products is actually a very, very easy thing to do, it still challenges a lot of people. It challenges what people have always been taught is normal, acceptable, is moral, is traditional, is, you know, all these kind of things. So you're going against a lot of basically, you know, common belief. Is that right? But you are. But it's like the other alternative is to sort of keep, you know, be quiet about it. But then I just couldn't live with myself. You know, I just couldn't do that.
Yeah. What is your ultimate goal in this? What is your dream?
My dream is something that I won't see in my lifetime, but I want total animal liberation. I want us to end this system, this society where we see some animals. When I talk about some animals, we're talking about speciesism, and this is the belief system that enables us to see certain animals as those that we should protect and care for and love. You know, I'm talking about dogs and cats, and we also look at for example, lions and rhinos. We treat some animals in certain ways. You know, cats and dogs, we absolutely cherish them. At the same time, we kill pigs, chickens, fish, put them through the most atrocious processes, mutilations, abuse, because we see these animals as commodities. And that's what I want to see, is the end of the commodification, for us to see animals for what they really are, not to see them as commodities, which is what I talked about earlier. You know, we give the same amount of respect to a chicken as we would a tin of beans. What we do to these animals, I just can't get my head around it. So I'd like to end to that, you know, to end animal exploitation, which is something like, you know, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that's going to happen in my lifetime or my grandchildren's. I'm not going to have children, but in my grandchildren or even their children's lifetime. But that is what I want. I don't believe in, if you're fighting against, if you're fighting for something, I don't believe in half measures. If you're fighting against some form of injustice, I don't. You're like, oh, I want to see a little bit less of that. You don't. You want to see the end of it. What's the point of sort of saying, oh, I'd like to see a reduction in racism? No, you want to end it. And that's what I want to end as well.
This is definitely your why in life. I mean, you're probably not going to, you know, see that before the end of your life. But let's say Martin Luther King also knew that racism wouldn't stop before he would die, you know. Yeah. But we need great leaders. We need influencers. We need people that have the guts like you to educate people. Even if it's not now, maybe in 10 years from now, they're like, you know what, Mr. Howells was actually right.
I think we get older. I think I'm obviously a lot older now than when I first sort of emerged and became sort of into the public consciousness. And I think as you do get older, you do sort of do things differently. And I think for me personally, I look at my life and look at how kind of like privileged I've been and how lucky I've been to have had a career in music. Something that I was from the very day, my earliest memories are of music, you know, my family and their record collections and me destroying their record collections, because I was obsessed with the fact that you could get music from a disc or, you know, or from the radio, this kind of thing. And so to have had a career, not everyone can do that. You know, you can be the most talented person in the world, but you can still spend your entire life struggling and never being heard. So I've had that, and I've been so lucky. I think you start to evaluate, what you've achieved and what you've done, and I look back at what I've done, and I realised that being an international DJ is not, your impact on the world is bad. Obviously you make people happy with the music that you play and people that are dancing, but your impact on the planet is huge. You're jetting around the world constantly, blah blah blah, this kind of thing, and I think it's a stage where you think, well, maybe I need to change the way I do things a bit, and like I said to you before, feeling uncomfortable with certain aspects of my life and feel I should be doing something. And I think I see a lot of people in music and outside of music, as they get older, they do start to gravitate more to things where I think they feel that they just have a voice and they feel comfortable in that particular area. It's just been a natural progression for me, and in exactly the same way as my music career was as well. I didn't ever set out to be a full-time professional DJ and producer. I just naturally gravitated to it, and it's exactly the same thing that's happened to me with animal rights as well.
How does this influence your personal life? What did or do you have to go through to get where you are right now as an animal activist?
It's very weird in a way. When I think going vegan, I didn't find it challenging. I found, in terms of food, in terms of things like clothing, in terms of things like toiletries, that kind of thing, it was kind of like a more of a exploration in a way. It's kind of like discovering that, I can go to Superdrug and I can buy a deodorant for 99p that hasn't been tested on animals. I can go to, all these kind of things. It was very exciting. It does put pressure initially on your life in terms of your family, in terms of your friends, because like I said before, you do go through an angry phase, and then suddenly you suddenly think, well, none of my family are going vegan, my friends aren't going vegan. You go through this kind of phase where it's uncomfortable. I think I went through a little period where I was kind of judging people, but then I suddenly started to realise, well, how can I be judging people for something that I've done for, the bulk of my life? I can't. Yeah. That would be completely hypocritical of me. So then you find ways of adapting. And I think that, for example, if you take my family, it does put a pressure on certain things, for example, family events, things like Christmas and this kind of thing, because my very presence will kind of make them feel a bit uncomfortable. They won't always acknowledge that, but it will make them feel a bit uncomfortable because, if they're going to be sitting around and they've got 3 different animals on their plate and they're going to be thinking, oh, he's looking at me or he's judging me, that kind of thing, then it does kind of put a little bit of pressure on those kind of situations. There's a lot of changes that take place in that area, but you adapt. I feel right now, I feel closer to my family, or I feel like I'm closer to a lot of people than I was previously, actually. And we talk about these things now. And I think before, in the first couple of years, it's like, it's another phase. He'll grow out of it. Hopefully he'll go back to eating animals again. And I think when people realise that that's not the case, then, the dialogue then emerges and you start to discuss but yeah, it changes your whole landscape in terms of friends and family. But I think better as well.
Yeah. Danny, I saw 2 links on your social media, and I'm curious what you can tell us about it. It's a documentary, Land of Hope and Glory, the hidden truth behind UK animal farming. And I saw a vegan kit. It's a vegan starter kit, which I thought was absolutely brilliant for people that have no idea yet what to do when they want to become vegan. Could you tell us a little bit why you have these 2 links on your social media?
Well, I just feel these are things that people should see, and I think if you've got constructive questions or you want any advice or you want help, then message me. And I think having these 2 links there as well is also kind of backs that up. If you have vegan starter kit, it's I can give you a million links, but that's a great introduction. It kind of answers pretty much every question you could possibly have, and I think it pretty debunks. If someone said to you, oh, yeah, but if you go vegan, then this will happen or this will happen, it kind of debunks all those myths as well. So I think you can sort of find every answer to every question about nutrition, about the ethics, about the environment, all this kind of thing. It's a really, really great place to start. And I think Land of Hope and Glory, it was made a couple of years ago, and I think it's really important to watch that. It's a documentary that was released onto YouTube, and it basically covers all UK farming practices. So it doesn't cover anything that happens outside of the UK. So, for example, it doesn't cover things like foie gras, or it doesn't cover fur farming or things like that. It covers UK practice, and it covers standard legal practices. So it shows what happens in the dairy industry. It shows what happens in the meat industry. It shows what happens to chickens, to sheep. And it's very sort of concise. It's very to the point. And it doesn't. I mean, it's graphic, but then obviously these practices are graphic. You know, they're killing animals. It is going to be graphic, but it doesn't go overboard for the sake of being overboard. It's kind of more factual. It's presented in a way that's kind of like very easy to sort of take on board. It explains very simply and very clearly about the conditions that animals are naturally kept in on free range farms, on high welfare farms, on red tractor, RSPCA assured, accredited farms, this kind of thing. So I think it's very, very important for people to see those. I think if people are paying for these industries to do these things, then I think people should know what they're paying for.
Mm-hmm. It's not about telling everybody become vegan. Maybe that's a dream, but it's like, please educate yourself. And I think people are becoming more and more conscious actually about the stuff that they do.
Some of the things that have had the biggest impact on me are the things that don't show blood. I said to you earlier about not seeing animals as being commodities, as being products, but as being individuals. And I think looking at an animal in the eye, having that connection with an animal and thinking, well, then I think you start to sort of realize that the system that we have in place that allows us to exploit, mutilate, kill, enslave, torture these animals it's trillions. I mean, it's 56 billion land animals every year, but it's when you get to fish, it becomes the trillions because of all the bycatch and all this kind of thing. So this system that enables us to that allows us to legally commit these atrocities, you start to question that. And I think it can be something as simple as looking at the animal in the eye, as making that connection and being told about the practices. I mean, I don't think you always sort of show somebody. I don't need to show you footage of a newborn calf being killed or being taken away from his mother. But I can explain to you. I think you can use words as well to explain what these processes, these practices entail. And it will have that impact on people. I mean, people message you and say, oh, yeah, I've gone vegan as a result, or I'm trying to go vegan, blah, blah, blah. But it's more the fact that people come to me all the time with questions. And I really, really love that. And I find that I seem to sort of see it more when I travel. When I'm going to a place like Argentina, where you've got this culture which is very heavily built on eating animal products.
Yes.
The amount of questions that I get there and people that want to engage and because I think people can probably tell from my social media and the way I talk online is that I'm not coming down on people. I'm not coming down really heavy on people because I used to do it myself. I never forget the fact that I spent most of my life doing the same things now that I'm trying to fight against. I think people feel that I'm quite approachable, and I really appreciate that because when I do travel, I find that so much of the time people come up to me in clubs, or they come up to me, people that drive you from the airport, they drive, the people that take you out, to show you around the city, this kind of thing. They're asking these questions. They say, oh, I saw this on your Instagram, or I've even, some people that I've met and they've actually sort of screen grabbed entire stories that I've done on the egg industry and things like this. So I'm like, oh, that's absolutely amazing that you've actually taken the time to save it to your phone. And I love that. That's what I really want. It's like, people to ask me questions, or people, oh, I saw this on your Instagram, but I don't think we do that over here. And I can say, well, I hate to put it to you, but yeah, it does. This is happening all over the world. And that conversation, that's the most important thing, and having that dialogue, and
definitely.
Yeah.
It's not about judging others. Like you said, culture is also a big influence on people's lives. So it's not about judging at all. It's about starting a conversation, right? Absolutely. That's actually my last question to you, because this is called sound waves. You can start a wave right now with this conversation. Which wave would you like to start?
Well, it's really. I did look briefly at your question when you gave me the questions before, and I didn't. I said to you, I'm not going to go by your questions because I prefer to just be led by conversation. But if I was to start a wave, I really don't know. I'd like to start a wave of kind of awareness, people to look into what they're doing, looking into a wave of kind of looking into how our actions. The consequences that our actions have, the impact that our existence has, and to look at how we can reduce the harm that we cause to our fellow humans, our fellow non-humans, our planet, because we all have to share this planet. I think we should, having a wave of awareness where we try to do as little harm. It's basically try and leave this place better than as it was when we came into it, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you like being on the podcast, Danny?
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I love things like this. It's just a lovely conversation where I think you can tell if I'm enjoying something because I start to ramble and I start to get a little bit kind of you to the stage where you can't really shut me up. That means I'm enjoying it. If I'm not enjoying it, then I'll give you like 3-word answers. This conversation would have been finished an hour ago. So.
Thank you so much. Right. As I started this entire podcast episode with you is about the people that know that you are such a kind, warm-hearted, pure person, and you will never do anything to judge other people. You're just doing everything in your power to just educate other people to become more aware of what's happening around them. And this is actually something that people have to thank you for. So
I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for that. Like you said before, I think that you said before is kind of you're going against sort of popular opinion. So that I'm not looking for any thanks or anything like that. But I think, like you say, just if we can get the message out there and inspire conversation, that kind of thing, then that's kind of, that's the most important thing. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Danny. Hopefully in the future we can talk again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you so much for trusting me again, for saying yes to my invitation. I hope I can see you in real life again soon when the corona crisis is over. And,
I'm absolutely sure we will. I don't think it's going to be this year, but I think, hopefully as soon as things start to get a bit more back to normal, then hopefully I will see you soon, definitely.
Yeah, then we'll do a dance. I will come dance on your music and we will have a nice vegan dinner together.
Absolutely. Right. Definitely.
For the listeners, thank you for listening to Soundwaves. If you enjoyed what you heard and if it was valuable for you, you can find this podcast on Spotify, Google Play and Apple Podcasts, or follow me on my YouTube channel or Instagram, Soundwaves the Podcast.